Hey there, my name is David Rogers, and I want to welcome you to the Nashville Jazz Workshop's Artist Spotlight, where every month I get the chance to sit down with a handful of artists with upcoming performances at the legendary Jazz Cave in Nashville, Tennessee. We get to dive into a bit of jazz history while also learning about each artist's process of preparing for their upcoming show. This week I had the chance to talk with guitarist Adam McPhail ahead of his Tribute to the Great Blues Guitarists show this Friday, May 24th. Adam tells the incredible story of playing for B.B. King at just 13 years old and shared the advice that B.B. gave him. Adam talked about his experiences playing guitar alongside other guitarists like Eric Gales and Corey Wong, and he shared some insight on the impact that some of his heroes like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Albert King, and Grant Green have had on him. I hope you enjoy. Hey, Adam, thank you so much for jumping on this call, man. I'm really looking forward to your show.
Man, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Absolutely, dude. I've got a bunch of questions, but I want to ask you first. I know a little bit of your story, but for the audience that doesn't, how did you start playing the guitar, specifically like blues guitar? I've seen that picture with you and BB. Was that kind of where blues entered your life?
So I started playing guitar when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
And really, the reason I wanted to start playing was I had some friends of mine who started a little band in like 5th grade. They were 1 year before me, and I saw them play at the talent show, and I just thought it was so cool. And then like I used to go to University of Southern Miss football games,
Okay.
and I'd hear like Back in Black, like the riff, and I just started to like, it's funny because before that I was almost more into like pop and like hip hop and stuff, but then like when I heard just the guitar, I just became completely, enamored with it. So that's how I started playing guitar. So my dad gave me a guitar for my 13th birthday, just a little Squire, and he gave it to me a couple months early. But blues entered my life. I was learning a lot of classic rock and things of that sort that guitar-wise lends itself to blues, the minor pentatonic sound.
Yeah.
But I started taking guitar lessons from a guy named Kerry Hudson.
Okay.
And in the town I'm from, he's very accomplished and a great guitar player and a great songwriter. And he showed me blues, and he was teaching me Stevie Ray Vaughan or Hendrix stuff, just all that kind of thing. And that's where I got my introduction to playing blues guitar. And by 8 months, I was, humbly speaking, I was pretty solid on the guitar because I would literally practice for 6 to 8 hours per day. I would come home at 3:30 and sit in my room and just play, no social anything, just until I went to bed, So when I was still 13, but I'd been playing about 8 or 9 months, there was a guitar workshop at Mississippi Valley State University, which B.B. King hosts, and it's called Coming Home to the Delta, something like that.
Okay.
And BB was there, and they had an audition, and they were to pick guitarists to play with him. So there were 20-something people who got up there, and 4 of us were chosen, and I was one of them.
Wow.
I was 13. There was a 14-year-old, there was a 16-year-old, and there was an 18-year-old. So I was playing with some people who were older. So that day I got chosen to play with BB King, and we jammed for an hour and a half or so, and it was a workshop, so he was simultaneously, talking to the crowd and pointing at us to solo, and we're, just 12-bar blues, straight down the middle, just, blues all the way. At the end of the workshop, he went down the line, and he told each player something that they could work on, right? So he started with the first player and said his piece, you need to work on your time or this and that, and I was the 4th one. He saved me to the end, and he said, Adam, you play like a professional. And he looked back at his friend and was like, doesn't he play like a professional? Who his friend, I'll talk about him in a minute, but he was very impressed, and he told me, he literally said, just keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be fine. And then talked to me and my family after that and kind of encouraged me and said, you're good enough to do this, and he ended up introducing me to one of his friends named Jesse Robinson, who was a very accomplished blues guitarist as well. And then so BB kind of got me introduced to the Mississippi blues scene. So by the time, later that year, 14 years old, I'm going to Jackson, Mississippi with my dad to go play at bars with, 50, 60-year-old black men playing the guitar. You know what I mean? And I'm just this kid.
Yeah.
And so I was gigging rather young in my life. So kind of the endorsement and the encouragement and the connections early in my career came from BB.
That's an incredible story, man. It's almost like something out of a Hollywood script or something. Can you remember back then, like you'd been playing for 8, 9 months or so. I'm sure you'd been listening to B.B. King as well. Like you knew who he was. Back then, do you remember what you thought of B.B. King versus now when you have so many more years under your belt and experience? Now looking back, how would you compare and contrast who B.B. King is to you? I know you're paying tribute to him as one of the 4 guitarists that you're pulling from on Friday.
Absolutely. I think it comes down to maturity. Obviously as a 13-year-old, not very mature, not very self-independent. I mean, there's a lot of things because you gotta think I'm a 13-year-old who had been playing for 8 or 9 months. Even though I was good, like as a player, mindset wise, mentality, very young, very green, very immature, what I mean? Just naturally, not anything extreme, but you're just a kid, know? So I think it wasn't until I was 16 that I was like, wow, I played with BB King. The reality kind of set in, and the mature musician in me kind of had a revelation of, wow, this is actually a big deal, and this was something that most guitar players never got to do. You know what I mean?
No.
And it was such an honor. I think at the time, I was like, cool, play with BB King, whatever,
yeah. What's next?
just not aware of what just happened, But then, as I got older, like it kind of built my resume, if you will, or my street cred around town and whatnot. So then, the newspapers talking to me and stuff. And then it kind of just became more apparent of the level of that accomplishment at such a young age. So looking back, I am incredibly grateful for that. I mean, that's a big part of who I am, why I started taking it so seriously, because I was already playing a lot, playing 6-7 hours practice. Can you imagine what happened after that? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, he's good. My dad was like full throttle, taking me to shows. And my dad likes to go out and go to bars and stuff. So he was always trying to meet local musicians that I could go sit in with. That was like something that was almost like a life goal of his, was to continually be going out, meeting the musicians on the local scene. Cause obviously I wasn't old enough, and he would have me come sit in. And then inevitably what would happen each time is I would come sit in, and then, they'd want me to keep playing with their band or whoever it was, or acoustic duo, come do that kind of thing. So I was actually gigging for money quite early in my life, Like I can remember in like high school, I used to play with this girl named Megan May.
Okay.
And she's a very great singer, very good guitarist, very great songwriter. And I remember making like $200 something. And I'm like 14 or 15. I'm just thinking I'm so rich. My dad was, obviously not officially, but my dad was kind of like my agent back in the day, just always trying to just get me into places to play.
Yeah. And you've played with so many amazing musicians, and not just musicians, but specifically guitar players, which I think is a really important thing to highlight. Like you've played with B.B. King, obviously, but Eric Gales and Keb Mo, Corey Wong, Mark Lettieri, like some of the greatest guitar players to have ever lived, and certainly among the greatest who are active today. How do you approach playing with great guitar players when you're in your role, maybe as rhythm guitar or supporting in your role and the parts that you're coming up with? How do you approach that scenario compared to maybe if you're the only guitarist?
So in those situations, again, I've been at this for a while, so maturity is like, understanding where you fit in the equation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there's obviously gigs that I play where I'm the go-getter, the hotshot guitar player, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But then there's moments where I'm playing with Eric Gales, I'm like, man, this is your time. You know what I mean? Like I'm just here. So obviously having listened to them quite a bit to understand their style and tone and what it is they're looking for, and just trying to find those spaces to fit behind them. But also what I've learned as I've gotten older is sometimes like I've made it this far because I am me. You know what I mean? So I also have to remember, you've been here, you've done this, just be yourself, be supportive, but ultimately do what you do, because I feel like sometimes when you start to try to mimic things, it starts to sound inauthentic, you know? So just kind of giving myself that pep talk, just like, be yourself, be supportive, don't play too much, get in where you fit in. I think that's kind of how, and it's always gone very well. You know, I was actually just in Seattle with Corey Wong, and I did a videotaping with him for Ernie Ball Strings.
Oh,
you know,
nice.
It was Corey Wong's rhythm section plus me.
Yeah.
You know, and I've heard so much of his music, but also just like, you know, knowing where their guitar playing comes from. I mean, look at, you know, Niles Rodgers and all the great, you know, Paul Jackson Jr., like where that sound kind of originated. I've spent so much time studying note for note parts and stuff and understanding how to approach that. So playing, you know, sometimes it comes way easier than it even seems, you know, because that's kind of like home base.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of my home bases is like that clean rhythm guitar thing. So playing with Corey honestly feels pretty natural.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, no doubt. You talked a little bit about B.B. King already, but there are three other guys who you are particularly paying tribute to, or who have been particularly influential to your sound. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Albert King, and Grant Green. How would you kind of characterize their influences on you and your sound?
Yeah, so, you know, like BB, you know, he gives you that storytelling, simple mindset of playing. You know, he's just very charismatic, and there's multiple layers of him that made it all work. You know what I mean? It's not just the playing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that storytelling thing you get from him, right? Stevie was like just laying it out there, you know, just going for it, you know, but he also had very tasty moments too, you know, but I mean, like, you know, like his song like Rude Mood and stuff, or Scuttlebutt and stuff, it's like there's definitely a very aggressive element to his playing, and I enjoy stuff like that because honestly, like, you know, I've been through a lot of things in my life, you know, just in many different degrees, so having an outlet like that, blues is a purely like emotion-based music. So having something like that where you can just like let all of your anger and all of whatever it is you're feeling in that moment, like let it out, and it's completely the sound of what it is you're looking for. And it's like, you know, disregard all the fancy jazz changes and this and that. It's like, all right, take these 5 notes. What can you do with these? You know what I mean? Just like let it out, purely emotion-based. And Albert, you know, just like vocabulary-wise and just, you know, songwriting, like his music had a lot of like even riff-based blues, you know, which is super cool. You know, it's not always just like 12 bar. Obviously, it follows that 12 bar format, but there's a little bit of a riff, almost rock element to it, you know, like kind of early stages of that, you know, and very groovy based things too, you know, that draw from like the early like R&B and stuff like that, you know. Grant Green. So in college, Grant Green was like kind of, because I studied jazz in undergrad, but Grant Green was kind of the person that I've always locked in with the most, playing and just kind of feel-wise, because he's very, very bluesy guitars, super good feel, you know, and he, you know, like when you listen to his like organ trio stuff, and you know, there's all kind of stuff where he's just like, he shows you like I can keep it simple, I can groove my ass off, right? I can just play feel good guitar that's not like some of the more purely like information based jazz that can sometimes be there, you know what I mean? Because that's really what I enjoy, is like good feel and rhythm and things like that. And just his approach always just sat really well with me, because he's got the bebop thing in there, you know, he knows how to play changes, you know, but like he's not just spitting unnecessary notes out. Like it's always very intentional and very tasteful. And that was kind of the first guy that I was like, okay, like I like this, you know. So I've done a few transcriptions of his and just kind of adapted, you know, kind of took on some of his licks that have kind of worked their way conceptually into my playing.
So again, this is Friday, May 24th, and there's a great band playing with you: Marcus Finney on drums, Brian Allen on bass,
and yourself.
Yeah, I'll be doing my best to not get in your way.
I can't wait, man. That's why I'm like, we got to do this. You know, it's gonna be super fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Talk maybe just in closing about how you conceptualize something like this when it's a tribute, but also you talked earlier about being authentic and kind of balancing what it means to be authentic in various circumstances. So in this particular circumstance, like how do you balance the tribute aspect with you are still, no matter what, Adam McPhail leading this show?
I think the way I'm approaching it, there's going to be, tunes that I picked that I'm going to, like, literally on this one, I'm going to go for my own sound. Like, I'm literally just going to sound like myself, right?
Yeah.
But then there's other moments where I'm going to intentionally try to channel that player and just be exactly that. So I think for me, for this show, song selection is the big thing.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? It's like the Grant Green stuff is likely going to sound like Grant Green, but I even put like a Lonnie Smith tune in there and some tunes that I can kind of stretch, like Little Wing and stuff like that, but you're going to hear moments of like, okay, he's definitely going for that sound. And you're also going to hear moments of, okay, here's Adam, because I do credit myself that over the years I have developed a sound where you can kind of tell that it's me. And I think as for what I'm going for as a musician, like I've always made my career off of versatility and being able to fit in any moment, but at the end of the day, kind of having my own thing, and I'm trying to build a brand for myself where you're getting Adam, and that's something that takes years and years and years. But some of the tunes that I picked, I'm going to be able to just kind of relax and not be like, okay, I got to try to do this just like him. It's like just play. And I feel like a lot of the energy from the show is going to come from those moments where I can just be myself and let loose.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Adam, for taking the time to talk through your Friday show and really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man. Can't wait.